Okay peeps, today we have some Grado SR225es to play with. So we're going to try and pull these apart, and if I've got the appropriate size sockets, we're going to probably do a detachable cable mod on these at the same time, because the cable that comes with them is quite fat and a little bit annoying. So yeah, basically, as these ear cups twist round, these cables tend to get twisted up and they'll break eventually if you're not careful. So sticking a socket in the bottom prevents that from happening. Now then, it's been a couple of years since I've done any Grados, so I'm not sure I can remember how to do them, but yeah, it's not too hard. From what I remember, these are held together with some kind of hot glue, so we'll need to warm them up to get them apart neatly, but we'll start off just by removing the pads. They just unhook like that, and then you can see the classic Grado driver under there. There's that. And then we'll remove the ear cups from the headband, maybe. Let's see. So they've just got two pins either side that you can release, I'm hoping. Oh, is that side going to come out? Yeah, this side. There we go. So that's that. And then just release this other one. So as you can see from the headband, it's made of a spring steel with a pleather cover over it, and these are the yokes that the ear cups attach to, and they slide up and down inside here, so there's like a interference fit in there. But what you will find is that once there's pressure applied, once your head's in there, these won't slide anymore. So it's quite a nice simple design which they haven't changed for years, and even on the more expensive ones it's a similar kind of design, but obviously made out of slightly nicer materials. Hopefully we'll get some other Grados in over the next week or so, and we'll have a play with those as well, some of the more expensive ones. So let's have a look. Right, so these are the ear cups. So the driver is a separate component, and then the ear cups come apart as well. You've got the metal mesh in there with a little button, and these are all held on with hot glue from what I remember. So we have to be careful, otherwise it all kind of just comes apart. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a little heating bed to get these out with. Okay, and right, so I've got a little heat bed here which is used to pull apart mobile phones and stuff like that. I have had one of these go faulty on me before and melted a pair of Grado headphones, so I'm particularly paranoid about using this. But I'm going to just keep an eye on the temperature manually as I'm going. What I'm going to do is I'm going to set this to about 80 degrees, which should be enough to kind of soften the glue, but not be hot enough to start damaging any of the components. So what I'm going to do is, what's going to be the easiest way of doing this? Probably going to heat up this side, the side without the driver, and then push all of this out in one go, hopefully. So I'm going to get all the glue soft around here, push all that out, and then I'll just have to use hot glue to get, or just heat up the original glue to get it all back together. So I'm going to put those on there, and I'm probably going to cover that up with something just to keep the heat in. And we'll come back in about 10 minutes when they've warmed up and see if we can get them apart. Right, so my little warm burrito has warmed these up a bit. Let's have a look. Right, so they're feeling quite warm. Don't know if they're quite hot enough yet. We'll just give it a go. There's some movement. Yeah, that's coming apart. This is good. Oh, no, that might need a bit more A bit more heating, it's halfway there. Oh, that one's come out. That's good. And nothing else came unstuck, which is nice. Alright. No, that one's cooled down too much. Right, I'm gonna just let that one heat up again. And we'll have a look at this one. Right, so as you can see, we've got this open and the grill is all held in with hot glue around there, and so is the little nameplate button. So sometimes when you warm it up, that will just kind of fall off, but I think we got it just the right kind of temperature so that it was soft enough that the glue would come off, but not so hot that melted. And inside you can see the driver, and what we're going to do is we're going to unsolder the connector off there, and then we'll see if we can fit some kind of socket in there. I'm hoping a 2.5mm will work nicely. Right, so I'm just waiting for the soldering iron to heat up. Most of the Grados have a similar kind of design. They just have nicer materials as you go up. The drivers do look slightly different on some of them. Certainly on the more expensive one, they'll put a blob of some kind of sound absorbing material on the back there. But yeah, looking at the driver, it does look different to some of the more expensive ones. Again, if you heat this up, you can pop the driver out from this casing, but I don't think we need to do this. We'll just unsolder the cable and then see if we can find a socket that's going to fit in there nicely. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get a fresh solder on my soldering iron. I'm going to touch that to the thing, heat it up. So that's one wire removed. That's the other one. As you can see, they use quite big blobs of solder on the Grados. Some may say the bigger the blob, the better the job. So might be good. Right, so that's one out. And still going to leave that to warm up. I'm just going to have a rummage around in my 2.5mm sockets to see what I've got. Right, I should have all the bits I need. I've got these little 2.5mm sockets. Ooh, don't lose that bit. Found myself some 2.5mm jacks. Got some little lengths of wire, just using some of our lits because it's nice and flexible, and I know that I'm going to need to bend it around a lot to get it into place. Also, I've got like 5 kilometers of this stuff just arrived, so I've got plenty to spare. Right, let's have a look. I reckon we just need a couple of shortish bits. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pre-tin these wires, which will make soldering them easier. And tinning is just where you add a little bit of solder to the end of the wire. This is lit wire, which is particularly difficult to solder, and you do have to tin it, otherwise it doesn't work. But with normal wires, it's still best practice just to tin it first, and then use the soldering iron to join the two bits together. That way you won't end up overheating any components or anything like that. It will melt a lot quicker. Okay. Right, so you probably won't need to do this if you've got normal wire, because this is lit, so I've got to just get a little blob of solder on the end there and let it wick up into all of the strands. Obviously normally I'd have a fume extractor on, but that won't sound very good on the microphone, so I'm going to leave that off and just not breathe too much. Top health and safety tip there. Just don't breathe. Okay, there we go. Right, so we've got our 2 lengths of wire. As you can see, what I've done is I've removed most of the old hot glue off here, and we'll apply some new stuff when we seal it back together. No point reusing that crusty stuff necessarily. So on these Grado drivers, you'll notice, like with the Bear Dynamic, they've got a little pen mark on one side of the driver, which denotes which side is positive. So that's handy. So I'm just going to attach these wires to the solder pads. That's one. Ooh. So it's always difficult getting your soldering iron at the right angle for this kind of thing. There you go, that's two. Ooh. There we go, like that. Let that dry. Right, so now we've got now what we've got is the sockets, and I can never tell which is positive and negative and stuff on these, so the best thing to do is actually have one of your jacks handy, plug it in, then you can use a multimeter. If you haven't already got a multimeter, get one. They only cost, you can get a cheap one for less than £10, and they're so useful for any kind of electrical work. The setting that you'll inevitably use most is the continuity setting, so make sure that you get a multimeter with a beep for continuity, because that way you don't have to look at the screen, you can just listen. There we go, so we know that that one's the ground. And which one's going to be positive? Nope, that one. Okay, so that's our positive, that's our ground. Let's solder these together. I'm just going to get a bit of fresh solder on my soldering iron. That's that one. Just going to check that that's all attached nicely. Yep. Oh, I've forgotten which one it was now. Is it this one? Yep, that one's the ground. Okay, so I'm going to solder that onto there. I would recommend holding wire with some micro manipulators or some tweezers or something, because that gets really hot. I've done this, I've burnt my fingers so many times that I've now just got leathery fingertips and it doesn't really hurt anymore, but certainly if you're starting out, I'll do that now. I'm checking over these solders. I'm not 100% happy with that one, so I'm just going to give it a bit more heat. It's difficult because you don't want to get these things too hot and melt the actual connector, but that's looking good. Okay, right. So now I'm hoping that this will all fit in there nicely. Just going to arrange my wires, get them out of the way, and pop that in the socket. And I should be able to get just a thread or two of these on there. I did modify it too much. There we go, so that's now clamped on nicely. And when we put it back together, I'll put a little bit of hot glue on the socket just to stop it from potentially coming unscrewed. Right, so there we go. So now we've got a little socket in our Grado ear cups, and I've screwed in that little retaining ring now. Then that is not going to fit through there. So what I'm going to have to do is use a Dremel to just take a little bit of material out of there so it fits together. In case you're wondering, those sockets are element 14, order code 473467. Yeah, got those from Farnell. They're pretty good, but I'm sure you can order them from anywhere. Okay, so I've got some little burr tools and stuff here. That's probably a good size. Right. And what I'm going to do is just invigilate that hole a little bit, just so that will fit in there. Let's have a look, is that going to fit? Just going to remove some more of the hot glue. Make sure there's no fluff in there, probably should have moved that first. Right. Is that big enough? Oh, that is pretty spot on. Yeah, I think it just needs a little bit more love with the Dremel. Cleaning up the edges a little bit. Okay, let's see. Yeah, there you go. So that's a pretty good fit. Yeah, nice. Right, so now I'm going to repeat that. Just get some of that stuff out of the way. Right. Okay, and we know what we're doing now. We're going to repeat this, and then if you stay tuned, we'll make the cable as well. We'll just what I'm going to do is I'm just going to convert the existing cable, and it'll be interesting because these 2.5 mils are much thinner than that, so we're going to get a little bit creative by the way we reattach them. But yeah, well, you know, I'll keep it rolling. We'll just do some kind of speed up.
Avec beaucoup de bienveillance, remuez votre
That is a beautiful thing. Right, we've got two Grado earcups with sockets in. We're winning. Let's just clear some of this debris. Okie pokey, right. So the plan now is to reuse this here cable. Now then, you can see on the Grados they actually use a little cable tie inside the earcup to stop it from coming out. So I'm just going to snip it off where the cable tie is because it won't look that nice there anyway. I'll have a little cinched bit. I might just do it just above the cable tie, just to get the maximum length out of it. Interestingly, you can see on the Grados they have 2 wires for each of them, which is a good bit of design there, because the smaller wire size will mean that you're not going to get any kind of skin effect, but doubling up means you got twice as much cross-section area, so you got lower impedance. So it's actually quite a nicely designed cable, and it's nice to see because I've seen it on the higher end models, but it's nice to see that they've got it on these ones as well. The only thing is, it's just, you know, how thick it is causes issues. So we're just going to remove a little bit of the outer cover. Come on. I know you're thinking you should use wire strippers, but it doesn't actually work that well on this stuff. Just being careful with a scalpel seems to be my preferred way. There we go. Right, so that's the wires, and you can see you've got 2 blues and 2 reds. Is this going to go on there? Maybe if we use a bit of ptfe tape to cinch it down, it might go in. If not, we can drill out the back of that connector a little bit. Is that going to fit? It's very close. It's very close to fitting. No. Nope, she's not going to fit. So yeah, so I've got 2 choices. I can either stick that on there and then use a bit of shrink tube to join the 2, or I can see if I can Dremel out a little bit of the back of this one. Just give me a little bit more room. So I'm going to use a little tiny carbide burr tool there. Ooh. Oh, so close. So, oh, is it in? I think it's in. Yeah, we're in. In like Flynn. Okay. So I've got that on there. Let's do the same the other side. Excellent. Right, let's just drill out the other one. Ooh, it's all gone a bit wobbly. Hopefully that'll go on here now. Like a glove. Right, excellent. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. We're getting somewhere. It's all coming together. Everything has just worked so well first time. This is good. This is good. This is encouraging because I got some more Grados on the way. This is a nice one to get going with. Okay. So, what have we got? So we got blue and then white and red, and so I'm thinking blue is ground. Let's just double check with the multi what's it. Oh dear. Oh. Oops, multimeter turned itself off. Yes, blue is ground. So this is good. This is what I suspected. With these little tiny jacks, there's not a lot of room for soldering. So we're going to have to be a bit careful. Right, so I want those. So I'm cutting these to the length I'm going to need. Okay, then I'm going to strip those off a little bit. So I'm trying not to strip too much because otherwise there's a chance of shorting, but we will use some ptfe tape again around this, which will help prevent that in the future. These wires have now changed lengths. Now I've pulled on them with the what's it. This is annoying. Well, you know, it is what it is. Right, okay. So again, I'm going to tin the ends of all these wires. I might twist the two together that go together. Solder them as what? Is that going to work? No, of course it's not going to work. Right. Okay. So again, tinning these first. There we go. I'm going to apply a little bit of flux paste to that. Ooh, that's entirely too much. A little bit there. Right, okay, here's another tip. When you've got to solder really close to a threaded section on a connector, there's a really good chance of you getting solder on the thread and it never screwing back together. So again, ptfe tape is your friend. Wrap it around the threaded bit, and then if any solder gets on there, you can just remove it. Okay, leaving the bit I want to solder exposed, obviously. But yeah, that'll save the thread from getting solder in it. ptfe tape is pretty heat resistant, so yeah, it doesn't melt when you're soldering, which is good. Right, how best to attack this? It's very tricky on these 2.5 mils because you haven't got a lot of room to screw the jack back together, so you've got to get your solders just right. That's soldered on the positive, just giving it a little wiggle, make sure it's properly soldered on there. Right, now the negative. Yeah, I can see this being a bit of a bugger to get back together, but we'll see. So that's soldered on there. Move the ptfe tape, and yes, that is slightly prone off the thread, which means we're not going to be able to get it back together. This is a bugger. Yeah, the cable may be too fat for these connectors. I'm just going to give that one more go, see if I can flatten it down a bit. That might just do it. Again, you could attack that with a Dremel and possibly get it a bit smaller. But it's so close to that thread. Right. Okay. That's that one. Again, when I get the hot glue on there, I'm going to connect that together with a bit of shrink tube so that you can't pull this out the bottom, because obviously you haven't got very much of this this stuff in there. Also, I've marked it up a bit where I've tried to screw that on, so it's going to need neatening up a bit with a bit of shrink tube. There we go. I should test that in a minute, but I think that went okay. So I'm going to repeat the process on this one. Might as well reuse that bit of ptfe tape. Always worth reusing materials where you can. Saves you money, saves the environment. You know, it's a good thing. It helps you feel better about yourself. It's like recycling on a tiny scale. Right, okay, so again, I'm going to cut these down. Strip them off. So after the last time, I'm going to try and do this slightly differently. I'm going to solder the 2 gram ones on separately because they won't be as big. I think that'll be easier. We will see. Okay. Oh, soldering iron still heating up. It's always the way. Alright, come on. Let's go. Okay, that's that. Let's get this one. Good. That one. Good. A little bit of flux paste on there and on there. Ooh. The flux just kind of helps the heat spread and helps you get a cleaner solder joint usually. That's attached nicely. put a little bit of ptfe around that. Okay, right, let's try and put the grounds in different places so it's flatter. So on that side. The other one just over a little bit. Let's inspect those solders before I carry on. Yeah, that seems right. Okay. I'll get that one just a little bit hotter. Okay, right. Is that hot? It's a bit hot. Okay, right, so that's that together. And before I go any further, I'm just going to check this with a multimeter just for continuity, because it is the case that occasionally you'll screw something back together and you knock off a solder joint. That's okay. Phew. Yeah, there we go, that's all good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little tiny bit of heat glue on here, and a little bit on here, and a little bit on the actual connector, and then when I shrink it down they'll kind of become one. Right. Okay, just going to grab some shrink tube. Nearly knocked the tripod over. Alright, cool. Is that long enough? Might go a little bit longer. And one thing you'll notice is there's little lumps under here, which is where the hot glue is. If we keep applying heat, the glue will melt and the force of the shrink tube will bring it all into a nice, neat looking package. So just keep heating it until it looks neat. And there's some glue pooing out the bottom there. I'll clean that up now. There you go, that's a pretty neat looking thing. While it's still warm, I'm going to straighten it up. And when it cools, it'll kind of harden a little bit and should stay straight. There we go, that's quite a nice, neat looking job. Let's do the same on this side. Right, so now we have a nice 2.5mm cable to go with our ear cups that have 2.5mm sockets. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to reseal these. So I'm just going to put some new hot glue in. Okay. So I'm going to put some on the socket just to give it some support. And I'm going to put a little bit around the edge like they did it before from the factory. Let's just try and make sure I get it the right way up. Yep. He says getting it slightly off angle. Right. Push that back together, get it even. Even it. Carefully. There we go. Right, so that's looking pretty good. Let's do the other one. No, I shouldn't push these together there. I don't want to come apart again now. Oh, I'm going to have to heat this one up to get it. No, we're there. That's a bit to support the socket. And then a bit around the edge. Obviously you need to get your glue gun really hot so that it stays molten while you put this together. There we go. Right, so that's 2 ear cups resealed. Now we should be able to put it all back together. Which is pretty much the reverse of how it came apart. Okay. So just applying a little bit of pressure to get the yolks to seat in the little holes in the side of the ear cup. Some escape glue. Right. That is the right way. Right, so that's that. Put the pads back on. And that is pretty much it. So now we've got some Grado SR225s, which have a detachable cable. Obviously these are going to have to go off and go on the test rig for a bit to make sure that everything's okay. But there we go, they snap in there. Oh, look at that. That's sexy. A little bit of custom cans branding there, just stay on point. There you go. Hope you enjoyed that. If you've got any questions, stick them in the what's it, and we might have some other Grado ones on the way. Some of the more expensive ones we will have to see. Okay, cheers. All right, bye. Blah blah blah. Subscribe. You know what to do. Do the thing. Subscribe, like, comment. Do it. You know, with the commenting and the subscribing and the you know the things. Do the things. Do the things. Do them. Don't they? The things.